Hey there, are you ready? Because today is the day when you start figuring out how to create a home you love right now with what you already have and in the home you're currently living in. I'm Sandra, your host of the Style Matters podcast, brought to you by Little Yellow Couch. And I truly believe that you should not put off living inside something beautiful and energizing and nurturing for some imaginary perfect time in your life. You need those things now. And to help you get started, go download our free guide that'll help you clarify what your style actually is. Now, I'm not talking about identifying a style category like farmhouse or boho. I'm talking about nailing down something specific and wholly unique to who you are. And at the end of the guide, I'll give you next steps on how to start putting that style to work. To get it, just go to littleyellowcouch.com and click on the yellow button right at the top. So welcome to Little Yellow Couch and the Style Matters podcast. This community of listeners is your people. You found us, and I am so glad you're here. My guest this week is designer Anne Hulcher Tollett, who runs the Virginia-based firm Hanover Avenue. We sometimes get laughing pretty hard like old friends during this episode, even though we've just met, and I hope that you feel Anne's warmth and humor as much as I do. Anne not only has impeccable taste and a phenomenal eye for design, you've got to check out the photos on the show notes page, but she's just so smart as she talks about her process, and that's why I love talking with her. I think you'll find her perspective refreshing and her excitement infectious. And I guess you can tell that I have a bit of a girl crush on her. Anyway, let's get started with Anne. Anne Tollett, welcome to the Style Matters podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. Yay.
Hey, y'all, we have been chatting for a few minutes and we're both laughing a lot. So I think this is going to be a really
that was
fun...
a weak introduction. That didn't sound professional at all.
It wasn't. It really wasn't. So
oh well.
I feel like we've been friends forever already. So
me too.
Let's just jump in. First of all, we want to hear about your background. I know a little bit. You have a degree in art history, in art.
No, painting and printmaking. Yeah.
Awesome. And I think you also worked for one of the big auction houses. Is that right?
No, that was the craziest thing. Well, no, it's the weirdest thing. So I was at design school at the University of Georgia.
Yeah.
And there was this, it must have been in the New Yorker or something, but it said the title was, So You Want to Be an Intern at Sotheby's.
Okay.
And it was like, basically it was like, good luck. It's never going to happen. And it was like so you want to be an intern? Psych. And so I remember reading it and I was like, well, now I'm going to do that. And so somehow I got the internship and it was really transformative. And that was right after my sophomore year in design school. And unfortunately, right as that was happening, my parents had this wicked divorce. Oh. And so I know, thanks. And so then I had to move back to Richmond and I switched my major. And I think I did it just because I was just in a crisis. And at first, when I started my design career, I was like, felt kind of almost insecure that I didn't have a formal degree. I mean, I'd gone to design school, but I didn't finish design school. I finished in painting and printmaking. So I had the foundation. And now I'm like, God, it's the best thing that I ever did. Because I feel like now I look at every project we work on, I feel like I was trained to look at it from the perspective of a true composition.
Right.
And I also think I have some art history references and can articulate things. It ended up being a very fortuitous turn of events.
Yes. I mean, to me, that's a better way to do it. Go get the art degree first.
Well, I think the other thing that I've taught just a handful of design classes, but I'm realizing now that so much that you learn, 20 years later, design school is fantastic for learning the nuts and bolts of the technique, really how to draw. Okay. It's very good at teaching you how to use all the software to get your idea onto paper.
Yeah.
But it's also very beneficial to be able to physically draw with a pen.
Yeah.
So that when you're in a meeting with a client, you can sketch something very fast and say, This is my idea. So there's so many upsides of design school, but 99% of what I do You learn that in the field. I think you
Yes.
really, yeah, that's, I mean,
Right. Exactly. Certainly the business of it.
totally.
Yeah.
But even some of the practical sides of it, just learning how a house is built, just learning how things fit together
Mm.
is so good to know what you can and can't do, especially if you're knocking down walls, and
Okay, sure.
to have a clear idea. Like, it's like, where the floor joists go intuitively
Right.
when you walk into a house, because you can see where I mean, the ceiling joists, you know what I'm saying? It's just,
Yeah.
so yeah.
And you do that with like in the field. Yeah. I love
I mean,
that.
I think if you're spitballing with a client and you see what direction the floorboards are running on the floor, then you know which direction the floor joists are running. And if you just can, so I think a lot of that you just learn by doing.
Yeah.
And,
well,
making mistakes, which we all have done.
That's right. And we learn from them. At least that's the point.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's so interesting. And Sotheby's. So how was that?
That was incredible. So I went to New York, and it was a summer program, and it was, you're obviously got a lot of legs, pantyhose. I don't know if you remember those.
Legs in the egg.
Oh yeah.
Wow. We're dating ourselves, my friend.
I know. Here we are. The older, the better. But anyway, Barbara Deiseroth was the head of the department as 20th century works of art. And so you were surrounded by the most incredible fine arts and antiques and decorative objects. And so I really started to learn. Yeah, you were immersed in it. And then the next summer, I was supposed to go work for them in London, properly work for them.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And I got transferred at the last minute to LA. And so Barbara would come out there too. And she was just an amazing mentor. And I got to go to different estates outside of LA, all around. And as we were cataloging other people's beautiful collections, you got to see all of these things in the wild. Wow. I mean, it's like I wouldn't trade that experience for the world.
Wow. Yeah. That sounds incredible. Especially really you're young, you're in New York, you're in LA. I mean, how fun.
Yeah. You can date an LA producer and just feel like you're
put a little check that box.
Then you come back to the East Coast, say goodbye. Yeah, it's fun. It was really fun.
Oh God. Okay. On your website, you say that good design is about creating a dialogue between every element in a room. And I love that. I think when those visual dialogues are in place, that is really what separates a room that's fine, good, with one that's incredible. And frankly, I really think yours are incredible. But creating a dialogue, I mean, what does that mean to the rest of us? Layman's terms here. What do you mean by that? Yeah, and can you give us some examples?
I'm like, I need to rethink some body copy. It means that I wanted each piece to kind of reverberate off one another and echo each other. And there's this thing that happens when I was starting to think, like, what did I mean when I said that? Because it sounded brilliant when I thought of it. I guess it doesn't make any sense, but it meant that I wanted each piece in the room to have a conversation with one another. And I kind of imagine it when you're at a dinner party, when you're with people that you've never met before, and it's such a rich conversation because you're getting perspectives and it's informed by other people's experiences from all over the world and different walks of life. And so sometimes when you walk into a room that has this collected, intentional, effortless, I know these are all words that seem like they're butting up against each other, but it creates almost like this reverberation, a little electricity, a little frisee, in the room. And that is what makes a room feel, to me, very interesting. And so we were trying to talk as a team. So I was like, God, I mean, I thought that I don't know what I meant, but I know what I mean.
Right.
I was thinking about, I can draw it, Xandra.
Right, there you go. Okay. There you go.
I can make it happen. But anyway, so we were talking about some chairs. I found these chairs that for one client, and this project hasn't been photographed yet, but if you're thinking just about a very standard furniture layout, like sofa, coffee table, 2 club chairs by a fireplace.
Yep.
I needed the 2 occasional chairs that are flanking the sofa facing in. They needed to be interesting. They both needed to have a really sexy back.
Okay.
You know what I mean? They needed,
because you can see the back.
Right. And they needed to have a really cool conversation, a dialogue across from one another, but I couldn't have them be a pair because we already had a pair of club chairs by the fireplace.
Gotcha.
So we found this fantastic vintage It was like a Spanish modern mid-century that had this cool bent black metal back.
Ooh.
And we covered the seat in like a taupe pointed velvet. But then right across from, I know it's great.
Sounds
I should
gorgeous.
send you. It's really, she's a fireball. But then across from it, it was like an older 18th century French caning marquetry, and she was black too. I don't know why they're both girls. They're sisters.
They were girls.
But they're both the same size roughly. They have a different profile. They're from a different era. But they had a really great conversation with one of them. And when you see them together, each one feels more interesting.
Yes.
And does that explain what was in my head?
I am with you. I'm with you all the way. Okay. And I think that mix going from, like you just said, mixing different eras, different styles. They have two commonalities, size and color, but it's that mix that I think it's hard. It's what people struggle with. And I think that it just takes a lot of practice. I mean, obviously, if you're going to become an interior designer and do this for other people, you need a lot more than practice. You need a lot of other knowledge and skills. But for the rest of us, I think that don't be afraid to try it out. Don't assume it's not going to work simply because things are different. It might be exactly what makes the room work.
Well, here's some good like tricks of the trade. Just if someone ever wants to just try it. I mean, a good jumping off point is, just start with, are the seats the same height?
Okay.
And then is the width and the depth similar?
Okay. Right.
And then is the height similar? They're both, like I said, one's metal black, one's a deep ebonized marquetry wood. But, if you just start to look at that, and sometimes if you start to think like that more and more, and it was funny because I found those at High Point Market, and I was like, that thing is as big as several football fields. And I was running this chair over to the other one being like, oh my God, I think these two things are in love. Like, I think that they're in love and I got to go. And we put them next to each other. I'll email you the picture of placing them together in different booths. But I was like, they're in love.
I would love to see that. Yeah. It's kind of like those movies, those star-crossed lover movies where people are from different time periods, but they somehow magically find each other across time.
Well, that to me is how you create have pieces, have a dialogue in the room. And I think another piece of that is making sure that the scale and proportion where one thing doesn't dominate the conversation.
Oh, okay. Good way to put it.
Right. So a lot of it is about thinking, this is an a cappella singing group, or this is a cast of a play, really, where you have to have an actress, the leading lady, you have the supporting actresses, the chorus, and everything you just can't have one thing go in there and scream and steal the show. Okay. And so we were just talking about this the other day, and some of my designers were bringing together some ideas. And there was just this one coffee table where it was like, it just
off.
Yeah, it was like this 80s middle finger in the room. And it was, it was just she was trying too hard.
Okay. Yeah.
And all of us were looking at it and we were like, we love her. She's the coolest table, but she's sucking all the air out of the room. She's dominating the conversation. So
yes,
that was a long way to get to a ham sandwich. Did I explain it?
I love it. No, I think the more you say, the more we understand it. So yeah, I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm just going to let you go.
Okay. But I think if people really start to trust their intuition.
Yeah.
I say this to my design team a lot too. When you're trying on an outfit and you're like, I got to take off one piece of jewelry.
Right.
Like I'm
Coco
over
Chanel. Yes.
Yeah. Remove it. Or there are other times when you're seeing someone and you realize that they're definitely not dressed for their age. You're like, I've done it before. I'm like, these legs do not support that skirt length anymore. Glad I did that when I did it, but I can't do that today.
Right.
And it looks like I'm trying too hard.
Right.
But I think if you see things, if you group things together in a room, you're just going to naturally start to hone your eye where you're like, oh, these things, they're all making the other one better. And they are talking to each other and they're making the other thing more interesting. There isn't one person dominating the conversation.
Right. That dinner party again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's really helpful.
Okay, good.
And yeah. This is along the same lines, I think, of the mix, which is incorporating things that are already there. And you've talked about that on your website. You love working with for people's furniture that they already have as much as you do starting from scratch in a bare
Yeah.
bones home. And sometimes what you're working with is architectural, and other times it's people's furniture or art, let's say.
Yeah.
How do you know things are going to work together? Like, because especially because I think some people, they go, oh, I want to get rid of everything. I'm sick of it all. I just want to start over. And I think it's because they can't imagine it in any other place. It's been in the bedroom for 20 years as a chest of drawers. They cannot imagine moving it to the dining room to hold napkins. How do you mix things together? How do you know it's going to work?
So the first thing we do when we always tell clients that we're going to just kind of audit the situation.
Okay.
And
Audit,
so
like that.
we'll go in, and sometimes they have the coolest stuff and they don't even know it's cool.
Right.
So I love to kick it off by shopping in the client's stuff.
Okay.
Because everyone has, and this is what I always say. I mean, my job is to discover what someone's inherent style is, because we all have one, articulate it in a way that feels just like they thought of it, but in a way that they probably never even imagined, but they dreamed. Do you know?
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So that's my job, is to say, I have to hop in their brain and figure out, what do they love? Because everyone has their own unique style. It's their thumbprint, right? So we'll go through and look at what they have. It's kind of all part of the process, like who they are, what they love, how they love to live today and tomorrow. And so we'll go in and look at all their pieces. And sometimes they'll say, I bought all this stuff with my ex-husband and it's out of here.
Oh,
and
right.
Right. And so in that situation, because then it's a bad memory.
Sure.
But sometimes they'll have this thing and they're like, I got this when I had my first college apartment because Nana gave it to me, and I feel guilty if I get rid of it. And I'm like, that's pretty awesome.
Exactly.
And if we put this next to this other piece, so we'll measure, audit, and we'll keep it all in their file. Yeah. And then very often, and sometimes we'll say, like, what of these pieces are sacred? And very often people have the pieces that they know are sacred because they mean something to them. Right. Even if they're people that hire us that are very young, feathering their first nest. Okay. They'll have something that reminds them of home or travels or whatever. So everyone, like I said, has their thumbprint. And then we'll keep those pieces. And as we're pulling together the design vision, I'll sometimes say, hey, you know what? Remember that awesome thing that you had in the guest bedroom? What if we use that here? And if you kind of slip it in within other stuff, it's a way to see it new. And so, and it also saves them a ton of money, and it gives them, a good history. And the other thing that we do a lot is bust up the set.
Okay. Yes. The sets. I know the sets are they're so confining and boring, frankly.
I know. So there's so many times where people, and it might just be like a vestige of the 70s, the bedroom with the faux bamboo, which I love all that stuff. And that's the thing, like, I love it, but it's like, I don't want to see like a tall dresser, short dresser, bedside tables, chair, everything's the same. So we'll say, this is the coolest stuff, but let's bust this up and put those little chairs, let's make that a little weirdo chair in a hall, and let's put this dresser somewhere else. So that's how that, and same with dining room chairs. We'll bust up that set and sometimes use the inherited pieces, obviously recover them, and then introduce 2 new head chairs. Right. And then put those head chairs in a hallway or as a desk chair. So it's just, I think a lot of designers do that. I think it's just our job to help the client see it's to reveal to the client how cool they are, how awesome their taste is. I mean, because really, clients have the coolest inherent style, and everyone has good taste. I just believe they do, and they just don't know how to get it out of their brain and pop it into a room. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's awesome. And your clients must love hearing that. I mean, must be a relief, because I think a lot of people truly believe they can't do this. They don't have a vision. They don't know. Well, I think I hear a lot, I don't even know what I like, which is so sad to me. How can you not know what you like? But I don't know why, but it's like it's been drummed out of us or something. Just like, it used to be cool to color with crayons, and then at some point in grade school, it's not cool anymore, Yeah, so it's true. I think the other thing too, if people are ever saying to themselves, I don't know what I like, a really good starting point is just to open your closet and stare at the palette.
Okay. Okay.
Like, what do you love to wear?
Yeah.
What,
Yeah.
because that's like, if there's a color that you think you look pretty in,
Mm-hmm.
or handsome in,
Mm-hmm.
so I always love to look at how people dress. I always tell clients when they're traveling, like, send me, if they're eating an amazing meal and they don't even, I want to see everything that they love, because they do have a style. And I mean, I tell my clients all the time, I don't know how to be a breast cancer surgeon.
Right. Right.
They do. They
Right.
do.
Right.
So, I mean, when they're like, I don't know how to do this, I'm like, I don't know how to be a lawyer. So, I mean, but they do. Everyone does have its style. They do.
Well, I love
They
that.
just,
That's how you see your job, is pulling it out as opposed to imposing it. And I think that's what's really cool about your work. And I can hear it in your voice as you're talking. There's this energy there. You want the rooms to feel energized. You don't want them to feel decorated or
oh God,
done.
dude. And that I'm serious. That is the worst feeling when I walk into someone's house and I'm like, I know. And it's horrible because you're like, I know that they just paid that designer a ton of money. And guess what? Tons. And I've been to that flipping showroom in Paris.
Right.
Where I'm like,
I just saw it. Yeah.
I just saw everything. And that's that feeling of paint by number. That to me is a real shame. And I think that is not someone really unearthing who that person truly is. It's taking just something that they've seen and is carefully curated. And my God, it's gorgeous, right?
Right.
It is gorgeous.
Sure.
I mean,
the things are beautiful. Yeah.
Right. But it's not that when I see that, I'm always like, oh, that's such a shame, because anyone else can have that exact same room. And that's what I'm saying. I want my clients to walk into their house and for it to feel as dynamic and interesting as they are. There's only one of them. There should only be one of their houses. And it's another thing when people are always like, can you tell me where you got that thing or what you did for? I'm like, I kind of can't. That person paid me to find that. Like,
yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? I'm like, so I'll share some things, but I'm like, no, that's top secret. That's just between us. And then, but I'll be like, I'll find a perfect color for you.
Right. Right.
So yeah, no, I mean, that's how I think you get the mix is, it's all about discovering your client. And it is true. We joke about it in this office, but we do kind of fall in love with our clients. We you know what I mean? Like, we love their house. We end up loving their pets and children. And so we invest so much of our brains and our heart. And so I think they'd probably say the same thing. I mean, they can tell we just adore them. So you do get to know them.
It really is a very intimate relationship you have with them. Yeah. The way you're describing it, you're getting into their brains. You're kind of getting into their deepest parts of them to figure out what they really love, what their passions really are. And so, it's very intimate. Another way I would describe your homes is, and I kind of just alluded to it when I said, I don't like homes that feel quote unquote decorated. I don't want this to be, I'm not trying to dismiss the incredible amount of work you put into it, but it's almost like I don't know that a designer per se has designed it.
Yeah, I don't want it to look like I've been there.
Yes, that's exactly right. The homes that I see of yours, they look like some fabulously stylish, really interesting people live there that I would love to get to know better.
That's my goal. That's my goal. I don't want someone ever to walk in and be like, oh, Hanover Avenue just whitewashed this place.
Okay.
Like, I tell my team this all the time. Our job, like I said, is to find out who these people are, how they want to live, what their style is. And then we're supposed to execute this in a way that they only could have ever dreamed of. It needs to feel exactly like them. It shouldn't feel like us, and it shouldn't feel like anyone else's house, because it needs to be as personal as it is to them. So I don't want it to look like I was there.
Well, good.
And I think, here's the other crazy thing. Sorry. And talking. Is this a one-way
that is your job. This is your interview. So you talk.
Well, I think the thing that really stinks is, this is what I'm trying to do is, it's almost like we want to go in there And like I said, there has to be that whimsy and personality and something that gives it a little sense of humor, but also something that feels, and this is going to sound like the wrong word because I don't think it looks imperfect, but you got to do something to just a little bit mess it up.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like I'm saying a bad thing, but you need to put in like that one, thing in the room where it doesn't look like we bought it all for the room. It's something that they picked up. They found it.
Yeah.
And they're like, I love this thing. Bam. It doesn't look like I picked it. And that's stuff that I have to pick all the things they hire me to, but I need it to look like I did one there.
Right.
So you have to do something to just like tweak it.
Absolutely. And I think that's when real people live here, because you would never expect to see that particular little sculpture, for example.
Yes.
It doesn't what is that about? It doesn't, how does that have to do with this room? And yet, oh my God, the story behind it's amazing. And everybody wants to talk about it. Sometimes
or one fabric on a chair, seat that doesn't feel like it would have ever been meant to be in there, but like it's a weird texture, or it's a irreverent pattern, or it's got some like weird, I keep saying weird, but it's something where it didn't look like everything can't be so perfect.
Yeah.
When you walk in, something's like, and I don't want to say anything because I love every fabric line, but where you're like, geez, Louise, you literally picked, it's all from the same
designer. Yeah.
Like just pick some vintage textiles, do something that busts it up and just makes it a little weird.
Totally. Sometimes when I'm like futzing with things, I'll like on a shelf or something, I'll go, I'm like, okay, I need to find something ugly. I just want, like, this is too perfect.
I know. You got to do something to kind of screw it up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's so true though. But it's really, that really does make it look like we weren't there. And that is the humor in it and the sense of humor. And it also, when there is something that's just a slight dissonant chord, that is when people look at a room and they stop for a second. Right?
Yes.
Because they're like, hey, what are you doing? And it's that one dissonant chord that keeps the melody going, but it's very important. And that's where I think that's our job as designers to be like, no, don't paint by number. Like, let's show you some cool stuff that you didn't think would work. That's our job, is to show them what they haven't seen on Instagram.
Right. Yes. I love that idea of stopping in a room and then going, wait a minute, what? And then looking again. A room that takes me 10 seconds to scan and I've literally seen everything, that's boring. I want to go up to a shelf and go, wait a minute, what is that?
Totally.
And you do that so beautifully.
Thank you for saying.
I wanted to, I mean it. I want to talk about Common House, which, you and I were talking about a little bit before we started recording. Common House is a social club, which I didn't even really know what a social club meant. And it's kind of being reinvented by these folks that are creating them. There's 3 of them now, I believe, and you've designed 2 of them. Tell us a little bit about it.
The founders and 2 of the founders are dear friends of mine, or they became very good friends as we were doing the whole project.
Okay.
But anyway, they wanted to create, both of them were members of Soho House. They're creative types, and they wanted to create. Soho House asks, what do you do?
Yep.
And Common House asks, what do you love to do? Ooh, that's the difference.
Wow.
Right. So they were trying to create a club where it wasn't about, it wasn't a scene like seeing and being seen. It was more
networking, like business, status. Yeah.
Yes. This was more trying to create a place that felt like a home away from home, where people could have both serendipitous and kind of planned interactions, where you are suddenly meeting people from your community that you never would have been meeting with.
Wow.
So they'll have like a chocolatier come in, and I always call it, I feel like it's adult camp, where you get to go learn how to make like a wooden spoon, and you're, one of the top attorneys is making a spoon next to, a nurse.
Yeah.
And they suddenly are like, oh my God, we have so much in common. And they're
Oh,
talking and then they realize, same. So it's
yes.
trying to build community rather than being elite.
Yeah. And also, we are so disconnected because first the Instagram came along, which,
Oh
I
my
love the
God.
Instagram too. But I mean, social media has allowed us, I mean, way back starting with YouTube or MySpace, I mean, it's allowed us to only connect with people we already know.
That's right.
And then we had the pandemic where we had to
Yeah.
socially isolate. So I mean, this is really needed. This, like you said, serendipitous interactions that are
It's really
enriching.
great.
Yeah.
It's
So,
good. I mean,
so you were tasked with designing two of them, and these are in Richmond
in
and
Charlottesville.
and then they
Uh-huh.
have another one in Chattanooga.
Right. And I think what they're doing that's so smart is they're hiring design firms and architects from the region where they're working. So
Okay.
I'm obviously a Virginian. So I
Right.
did Charlottesville and Richmond.
Yeah.
And then, but again, it's fostering community.
Yeah.
So why would you bring in someone from out of town?
Makes sense.
Why would,
Yeah.
support. I mean, they practice what they preach. They're great guys. I mean, that was such a fun job. And I mean, talk about getting to do the mix, because even though that's a commercial job, we were allowed to use some really wacko stuff. I mean,
Right.
Antiques and stuff that are not meant to go in a commercial application at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the owner, Derek, was so daring. And he was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. We can always buy another one when this thing falls apart, but I don't want to have a commercial chair in here.
Love that.
I know.
Let's use it. Yes.
Mhm.
Don't just buy something that's commercial grade.
Yes.
Because we need it to last. Let's use something that has a lot of character. And because that's why I want to be in those clubs. I mean, I see the picture and go, oh, I could hang out there for hours. I could work there. I could have a drink there. I go to a lecture there.
They let us find stuff too. I mean, a couple of the chairs I think came over from maybe Denmark. I mean, we were sourcing from all over the world. And the first one was done obviously before the pandemic, when you could get a chair in Denmark and it could be in America in 6 weeks. Those good old days. Those good old days. So that was where it allowed us to just really expand our horizon. And I would say that that's something, I mean, when I was looking at what you wanted to talk about, one of the things that I thought was worth mentioning is when you are finding antiques from all over the world or wherever, sometimes I think one, it gives the house a story, or a club a story.
Yeah.
And even if you yourself weren't in Denmark finding the chair, or your great grandmother is not, from Denmark,
right?
You can still have a story where you're like, my designer was in the basement of this thing, FaceTiming me.
Right.
And it was, and it was this time zone and that. So there's still a story to it. And it does give a house or a club or any environment something that feels unsterile. I mean, it feels like, isn't that, and that's, yes. So I loved doing those clubs because they really let us do whatever we wanted to do. They were so creative and fun. I know, I love them.
They're cool. And they're very different as you would expect them to be. Different cities, different vibes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Really fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's so fun.
Really fun. So speaking of the fact that these are in Virginia, in the South, you're a Southern girl, at least born in the South, but you've lived a lot of different places. Do you think there's like a Southern design?
I've thought about this a lot because, and this is as Instagram has kind of made everything feel like the same. One thing that I would say is the overarching trend in Southern design, and it's really whether or not we're doing a very modern house or something that's extremely traditional. I think every Southern space is gracious.
Okay.
It beckons. I try to make sure every space welcomes you in. So even if it is extremely distilled, there is a warmth and a comfort, because Southern women, I mean, no one says, my mom used to always be like, don't touch that. That's for company. No one has company. I'm like, okay, I really wanted some of these peanuts. But anyway, we don't entertain company. We don't have people just drop in as they used to.
Right.
But we do, as Southern women, want houses to feel very gracious, or any environment, whether we're designing a restaurant or a club or a house, it needs to beckon you in and make you feel comfortable. And we were just having this conversation with another client where the entryway And this is a house that's being built from the ground up. And there was an architectural element that was starting to feel like hi bye. Like you walk in the door and it's like, get out of here.
Oh,
What I mean?
interesting.
It was
Okay.
so crazy. Yeah. It was this bizarre
Like it was
thing.
off-putting kind of, or what do you mean?
Well, it was this big monolith that was going up.
Hmm.
And that the architecture of the project had changed significantly since it began. And it's one of those things where you're always auditing the design process and you're always saying to yourself, it's back to what we keep talking about, like, is anything taking a life out of the room? Is anyone sucking the oxygen out of the room? And this one thing, I was like, I know why this was designed 3 years ago.
Okay.
But today, as the project's evolving, this architectural element might not be the right thing anymore, because it was creating this barrier where you walk in the door and it's like, even if I'd put a mirror on it to welcome you in, it just felt like hello, goodbye.
Wow. And, like a door slamming in your face more.
Totally. And so I think we're trying to figure out, like, okay, what is the solution to have this entryway of this phenomenal modern house draw you in, welcome you. So that, I think, is the Southern, if there was ever something that is very Southern, it's that most Southern houses, environments, designers, I think, kind of have that tradition of a gracious, welcoming room.
And that's graciousness is such a beautiful, beautiful thing, because there's kindness to it and generosity and authenticity, you know, presuming that's the kind of graciousness you mean. And
yes,
it's very beautiful. So, all right, but we have to go back to this project. So what did you do instead?
We're working through it. So the very first thing I did was I called the architect, who's a dear friend of mine, and just said, hey, this thing, I'm standing in the space because, you know, the building is evolving. And I was like, I know this thing is supposed to be built here. It's not built yet.
Oh, okay.
This is me thinking down the road.
Yeah.
So it's not built yet. And I was standing there and saying to him, do you think that this might be something that was just a vestige of the past and we need to kind of rethink it? Like, it was part of the old design thinking. Do we need so he and I FaceTimed, and and then I talked to the client about it. And so we're not going to like kill it off yet. We're just going to rethink it, because those are the design gods that I always say descend on a project. Oh, every project has them. And I always tell my team and everyone, like, hold on to an idea lightly.
Okay.
Don't, because you have to allow rooms for the design gods to come into the project and be aware. And it's not like a spooky weirdo, but it's but it's real, because so in that moment, as I'm standing there imagining that this huge monolith is going to go up 10, 15 feet from the door, I'm like, there's this massive view out onto these gorgeous mountains. Why are we? Yeah.
Wow. So that's so different than the stories that you hear when somebody's working with a contractor, especially if there's only a contractor involved. You better know what you want ahead of time, and you better stick to it, because every little change you make is going to cost you. And yeah, it does cost. But I mean, it's almost the opposite of what you're saying. Like, there's no room to be flexible in your thinking or to allow the project to evolve and to find out that, you know what, I actually don't want that particular architectural feature. So that's wonderful that you do that.
Well, I think you have to know when you can do that, because in that particular instance, that's being built by a cabinet mill worker. Like, it's being, that's not something that was an architectural element that would have impeded the progress of the job.
Okay.
So I think there's a balance of doing your due diligence at the outset. I think if I had gone in and been like, hey, should we just raise these ceilings an extra 12 inches? Everyone would be like,
I'm going to kill
your day job. Quit your day job. But this was something where I was like, okay, we're still in the shop drawing phase of this. I could easily take this 10-foot monolith and shrink it down. So that's what I'm saying, is there's a very fine line of wasting a client's time and money, or allowing something to happen for a design god to descend upon a project where you know that it's speaking to you. And, I got to say that even when they were in the construction phase, a few things got tweaked, but this design team, including the contractor, has been really mindful about all communicating about when the ship has sailed.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like after this rough-in phase, any changes are going to cost. And that's where it's just, that's where I would always tell clients, if you're about to build something or really do a renovation, it's so good to hire a design team
Mm-hmm.
that is so seasoned in their job, because that is where a lot of things cost, is where
Yeah.
someone suddenly is like, I don't want the light switches right there. I want to scoot them over 13 inches for art. And you're like, why didn't you say that when we were doing
Yes.
electrical rough in?
Yes, yes. But people don't, if you're not trained, you don't think of those things. And so there's all this stress because you're like, I know I can't think of everything. And that's why
Yeah.
people like you are needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could talk to you forever, and
I
I
could
hope we
talk to
talk
you forever.
again. Thank you. But I'm going to wrap us up here and ask you the question that everybody knows I'm going to ask you, which is why
Wait, clear
does
my throat.
style
Clear my
matter?
throat.
Are you ready for your close up?
Girl, ready. I really thought about this, actually.
Awesome. Awesome.
Okay. Here's why I think style matters. I mean, let's say big picture in the state of the world,
Yeah.
right? Like, it matters in air quotes.
Yeah.
But I think it is, because I was falling asleep thinking about this last night. I just think, and it kind of goes to what we've been talking about, it's just a window into someone's heart and soul and mind.
Mm.
And it is such a personal experience that we're so privileged to be a part of. But when you see how someone loves to live and what they love to be surrounded by, it is such a glimpse into their tenderness, their history. It's very personal. And I started to think like, okay, we work on some of these amazing projects, big and small. But there's this show that I love called Alone, where these people are thrust into the wilderness to just survive with nothing.
Okay.
And this is crazy. But the thing that I love the most about that show is watching them create their shelter.
Oh,
They have nothing. They have
right.
nothing. And some of them, it's very utilitarian.
Mm-hmm.
It's like bed, pot, a hook.
Yeah. Yeah.
And up and seriously. And others are like picking up shells from the beach.
Oh, yes.
Or making their bed a little softer. And as I'm watching them feather their nest and make their environment, I'm like, oh, even with nothing. That's why, like, even if you look at someone's dorm room, their style in their environment, it's giving me goosebumps saying it. It's so personal. It's why I love my job so much, because you have such a connection to their heart. And so that's why I think it matters. I mean, it doesn't matter big picture. We all are supposed to be nice people and love each other and treat each other with kindness. But if you're just looking at something from a purely aesthetic point of view, you can still see a glimmer into their kindness and to how they love to live. So that's, I mean, I was falling asleep last night being like, man, these poor kids. I mean, we just had all these tragedies in the world. And I'm like, I gotta talk about why style matters.
I know. Oh, believe me. I grapple with that all the time. I know.
But it does matter. I mean, it really does. That's how we all, I mean, look at like Pesh Morel and all these cave paintings and stuff. My husband and I took this trip to Santa Fe, and we were looking at these houses.
Oh, Bandelier National Monument.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just looking at how they feathered their nest, their personal style. It is something that we've been doing as humans since, as we've evolved. So it does matter. It shows how we survive, how we live, how we love.
Absolutely. And I think everyone deserves to live in beauty, however they define that. It's not just about, I mean, it is about food and shelter and water. Okay, I get that. And I get that we're not talking about saving people's lives, but I do think that there's a kernel there that's kind of shouting out, saying beauty, we need it. We need it. And so, well, that was wonderful.
I do believe, and that's what I'm saying. Like, even if you look at that show and you see some of these things that you wouldn't necessarily look at their shelter and call it beautiful per se, but it's working for them because it's allowing them to rest, refuel, dream, eat, survive. And that's what I'm saying. So I think everyone's house, that's why I always, when I'm going back to what I tell my clients, like, they do have an inherent style. It's just like when kids are like, I don't know how to draw. And I'm like, yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Someone just told you don't know how to draw. Because when you're 2, you don't think you can't draw.
Exactly.
So that's why, but you're right. The beauty thing, it's allowing people to feel comforted, and it makes them feel calm and enveloped in their space.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well,
Come,
that was beautifully said.
come to Richmond and play with me. I want to be your friend.
When can I come? When can I come?
Oh, no,
I
tomorrow.
yeah, I would love to. And I will. I promise. I'm not even just saying that. I'm not even just saying
I
that.
really want you to. This
Good.
was so fun. I'm
Good.
really thrilled that you wanted to talk. This is such
Oh,
a fun way to spend my afternoon.
it's even better than what I thought it was going to be when I'm in
Aw.
drooling over your pictures.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Sandra.
Okay, I hope that was helpful and inspiring. Do check out our website, littleyellowcouch.com, where you can see photos and links from this episode, learn about my slow style approach to design, and grab your free style guide to get you started on your signature style today. Have a great week. Bye for now.